Okay, so the aim of this video is to introduce you to 5 elements that influence how every person expresses themselves in creative ways. Now, why are we doing this? Well, every single day you express yourselves in creative ways. You tell people how you feel, you might post a Facebook status about it, and you're letting the world know how you feel, hopefully in a way that engages people and gets people to listen. Now, the better communicator that you become, obviously the more people are going to listen and the more fulfilled, I guess, that you would end up being. Now, an example of this that I love is memes. People express the way that they react to events or situations by creating a visual representation called a meme, and they also include some awesome puns or some bit of language in there to make people laugh and giggle. And for example, what's awesome about memes is people are using their creativity to express the way they feel in ways that catch people's attention. So without further ado, we're going to talk about 5 elements that make up a creative text, that if you understand them, you'll be able to express yourself in a more creative and engaging way and hopefully get people to listen to you. So term number 1 is representation. Representation is the way that ideas are presented. A representation usually captures and presents the composer's impression of a personality, event, or situation. Take this representation of an event from a friend of mine.
History awaits. Holy shit!
So in this case, his scream and language is a representation. It captures and presents an impression of an event that's happened. Now, it's not the most creative and it's not the longest, but it's still a representation. Term 2 is perspective. Now, a perspective is a composer's way of seeing an event, personality, or situation given the surrounding context at the time. So what is this composer's perspective? Well, his yell, shaking camera, film angle, basically the whole thing is his representation. And it reveals his anguish and shock at the missed field goal, which is his perspective. Number 3 is context. Context is the world that surrounds the representation. In the case of my friend's video, the context is the live sporting game. The 83,000 people that were at the game and surrounding the composer at the time of the event, and also the events that led up to this tension in the moment. The game is tied, the time has run out. All of these contextual elements are affecting the composer's perspective and representation. Now, his representation about the same event would be different if it was a week or a year later and he was watching this same event 5 or 6 times. So this representation has been captured in this moment and will probably never be repeated with the same kind of ferocity as it was in this one moment here. Term 4 is form. Form is the type of text presented by the composer. So when we're talking about form, we're talking about its set structures. So it may be a film or an autobiography or a story or a diary entry. And each form has its own set of conventions regarding the language use and the structure of the text. For example, a poem is conventionally a shorter text than, say, a short story. And a film includes both visuals and sound, but often contains a limited amount of text that comes up on the screen. Whereas obviously a short story does not contain any visuals at all, but is 100% text. And finally, number 5 is meaning. Meaning is what the responder understands from the text. The first 4 elements which I've spoken about are created and controlled by the composer, and the 5th is created by the responder. And each person, when they respond to a text, will gather a different meaning from the text depending on their background. Now, it's the job of the composer to create a text in such a way that the intended meaning is communicated to the audience that the text is designed for. And that's all. So the 5 terms: representation, perspective, context, form, and meaning. These are the 5 elements that make up a creative text, and hopefully now that you know them, you'll be able to control them more and be able to put forward the intended meaning that you want for a text that you're creating.